Shugalan, dear Aries, I'm Medicine, and I'd like to welcome you humbly to this circle, to this gathering. We are getting ready to divine um, the messages, the events, the forecast for the beginning stages of triad of Libra. The first triad of Libra happens on um, September 23rd, and it goes until October 3rd. And it is all about birth. And so we get the Shaman of Birth as the card for this first trimester of Libra. And the Shaman of Birth it's really, what it's really about is secrets. It's about stepping into a new phase of your life. Some part of you is, the old you is gone, if you will. Um, the old you being, no longer am I a bachelor, no longer am I single, um, no longer am I a child or a teenager or a youth, or, you know, at this time of year, I'm not necessarily being in my youthful teen like stages where I'm going out and having fun. Now I'm getting ready to step into a side of me that is more inward rather than outward, if you will. A side of you that is more um, inward. I mean, I want to say introspective, but I'm trying to stay away from. But what I really want to say is that there's a time when you're out. There's a time when you're being external. There's a time when you're letting the world know who you are, and then there's a time where you're in. And there's a time where you are more secretive, and then there's a time where you are returning home to self. And the Shaman of Birth really begins that journey of returning home to self. It is called the Shaman of Birth because there is a new idea, if you will, that is being born within the womb of you, if you will. Doesn't necessarily have to do with having a child per se, although it could be about having a child. But maybe the idea of having a child, the idea of cleansing space, the idea of opening up yourself to be impregnated by creative forces, by some sort of product of love, whether that be a child, whether that be some sort of creation, whether that be, the Shaman of Birth strongly has to do with procreation, but more the beginning stages of it. It's not necessarily the culmination or the climactic point, but rather the very beginning stages where I'm thinking about having a child, or I'm thinking about this new idea. I'm considering, I'm thinking about, this new creative effort, that I'm going for. And you can see that there are two people. So you've got the masculine energy there, and then you've got the feminine energy there. And what we really look at when we look at the masculine energy and the feminine energy there is what we're looking at is we're looking at the muse, and we're looking at the inspiration versus the artist, right? So the idea behind that is like, is like your partner. This is a matter of partnership. The shaman of birth, we're going into a partnership versus being in us going solo. You know, like we were discussing before, the solo life is over, going into a place of partnership. Um, uh, and creating a product of love from that partnership, whatever that is. If that product of love, once again, is a child or a creation, it doesn't necessarily have to be a baby per se, but the artist and the muse kind of go hand in hand because the muse inspires the artist, right, to paint, right? And the muse is the model, is the point of inspiration that inspires the artist. So this often happens when we are in partnership with one another. We inspire one another. We to create. We combine those energies together to create a product of love. So it's really just about starting this brand new model, business model, idea, brand new partnership of some sort. But at this point, with the shaman of birth, we look. It's something that is very secretive. It's not something that is like I'm telling everybody about this partnership that I began per se. Um, um, Maybe if it's like a marriage or but this is really about stepping into a partnership. I mean, maybe if it's a marriage, and if you are getting married, then you know what I mean. This is amazing news. But what we're really looking at with the shaman of birth is the idea of coming together. We're looking at a partnership, and um, we're really looking at secrets. We're really looking at stepping out of the limelight. I believe is the proper word that I'd like to use here. We're looking at stepping out of the limelight because we talked about the adult stages earlier, and we talked about that time of being the adventurous and being out there, but now it's like I'm coming more inward. We're looking at stepping out of the limelight and settling down, and creating some roots of our own, nesting. We're looking at nesting. We're looking at that time spent at home to nest and to prepare to begin this new life of starting a new family, of starting a new marriage, of starting a new business. You're starting a new partnership, whatever that case might be. That's really what we're looking at with the shaman of birth. Something that is starting to secretly be born, but something that is more within than it is more without. And so at this time, just on an astrological level, I'd like to say that at this time, this is happening for you in your seventh house. Okay, so it's happening for you here in your seventh house. Um, which is all about, once again, it's all about partnerships. So, with the sun being in your seventh house, you're really looking forward to creating partnership. You're really looking forward to starting new partnerships, either a new marriage, like I said earlier, I mean, like, congratulations if you found a partner, a marriage partner, a business partner, whatever the case might be. So for you, this is going to be in your seventh house. Um, so, that being said, let us throw the bones and see what we get as far as this trimester week is going for you. I call it sort of a tri week because it's a 10-day period rather than a 7-day. Okay, it didn't feel right. I gotta go. Okay, so what I am seeing here, first of all, the first one that dropped was this guy. And this guy talks about, stepping out, being the center of attention, being the center focus. And it really talks about being in the light. What it really talks about is allowing your light to shine brightly. Just allowing your heart to be open. It talks about if you're whatever it is that you're trying to attract, and this to me suggests that you're definitely trying to attract something from the center. So whatever you're trying to attract into your life right now, give yourself permission for your heart to be open fully and completely, and to be vulnerable to the process. Open your heart, be absolutely open and vulnerable to the process. And as your light radiates from within, you will attract the things that you wish to attract without. Notice how, because this is my sun shell and it's going back to center. So we're talking about going back to center. We're talking about going back to within, back to your personal dreams, back to your personal creativity, back to your personal center. This is where your light is honed in from, is that personal center space. Okay. And I also want to recognize how the shell is within the north. And so we're looking at the spirits of the north, guides of the north who would guide you. I want to look at pregnancy here because, the three aspects here that you have are going to be Saturn, okay, the moon, and if I can just slip it from underneath there, yeah. And, Saturn, the moon, and then also harmony. And so what we're really looking at, once again, we talked about being secretive. And this is just that time for you to really go within and to be secretive. Because we are calling upon Saturn as a guide and as an aspect. What we might be looking at is our karmic depths, our master lessons. There might be some difficulties or hardships that might come your way at this time, even in the beginning of your partnership or your marriage. But as long as you stay open and vulnerable to the process, everything will go as it needs to go. There may be some moments where you begin to feel really restricted and maybe feel like, it's an uncomfortable space, right? You're in a space of transitioning where you might have been used to being out there, and being out in the limelight and showing up in such a way. And now all of a sudden everything is changing and you're starting to come into a partnership, which may mean that you may need to learn what partnership means in your life. It means compromise, for example. It's not just you anymore. It's the you that is combined with somebody else. And so we might be looking at how, and in some ways that can feel very restricting. You might not necessarily feel like you have some sense of freedom anymore because you may have to redirect traffic on how you approach self, because we're looking at partnership at this time. And for those of you who may not be in a partnership at this time, we still could be looking at partnership in the way of the masculine and feminine sides of the self. So for those of you who may be looking at partnership of the other side, so for example, so as an example, you as an Aries, you've got Aries and your polar opposite is Libra. So you're creating a balancing partnership between the Aries inside of you and the Libra inside of you. Libra being that which is balanced and harmonious and being more logical and more sensible rather, and more trying to create peace and balance and harmony on the surface, while Aries is perhaps more conflict, war-driven, competitive. Libra perhaps is more non-competitive because it's more peacemaking. So this is just an example. within yourself, you carry both energies within you, just so you're aware of that. Um, but at this time, you're really looking to balance those energies out, and it can feel restricting if you are used to being within that Aries power versus having to balance out the Aries with the Libra inside of you, because you do have Libra on the inside of you. The Libra on the inside of you is what attracts you, because that's what the seventh house, that's what we take a look at, is we take a look at what is the exact opposite to what we express on the external. So somewhere inside of yourself, there is this craving for partnership and for balance and for peace and for love, and for harmony, although you may not project that on the outside. See, so this is what we're talking about. We're really this is what going back to what we were talking about. We were talking about going within, and learning to work with these secretive energies that we don't necessarily show the world. You may not necessarily show the world that you actually have a side of yourself that is peacemaking, that wants partnership, that wants love, that wants marriage. You may project independence, right? You may project that on, the world may see you as independent and strong and self-willed, but on the inside, there's this side of you that does crave for partnership. And so it can feel very uncomfortable and very restrictive in some manner, because you're not used to being able, especially if you're not used to being to um to balancing out those two polar opposites, because they're at war with one another. It starts an inner conflict on the inside of yourself, as well as for those of you looking at partnership on the outside, externalized partnership. It can have a conflict in your partnership, because both of you are learning to work together versus learning to work separately or independently. It's that same thing. You see what I'm saying? So whether your partnership is on the inside of yourself, is being created on the inside of yourself, or is being created on the outside, in the external or in the internal, it still looks the same. It still is the same. It's just one is external and the other one is, literally, that's the only difference. Literally, that is the only difference. The only difference is that in the external partnership is simply projecting something that is inside of yourself. And when you can really hone in on, this partner of mine is projecting something that is inside of myself, then the question becomes not so much how do I, the conflict or the frustration that I'm having with this person, but it becomes the conflict and the frustration that I'm having with myself, and how do I create inner peace with that? And this is why we're working with Saturn, the moon, and Harmonia at this time, because Harmonia speaks about how to balance out two polar opposites. Saturn is your more grounded, more earthly, more stable side. The moon is your more spiritual, more emotional side. Whereas one is more practical and one is more orderly and one is more grounded, the other one is more emotional and more spiritual. So it's the balancing of spirit and the physical. You project yourself out in the physical world maybe to be the independent, but on the spiritual and the emotional side, there's that side of you that is peacemaking and orderly, even though your earthlier presence is more independent, strong-willed, and fiery force-like. So, so it then becomes, how can I work with these energies and entities? Simply just calling them in, just asking them to really help you to balance, to find that balance, to find that harmony between these two paradoxes in your life right now, because it's a life of paradox. It's a life of opposites. It's a life of of it's this, but it's also that at the same time. So really calling in that. So calling in, calling in your guides, calling in, Saturn as a guide, and helping you to understand your more earthier, more grounded presence, calling in the moon as, a guide to help you understand your more spiritual and emotional, more introspective, more inner presence, calling in Harmonia, who sits between the two, to really harmonize and find balance and peace between that. That's kind of your job at this time for this trimester. So then we also have this stone here, which speaks a lot to me about, okay, first of all, and it's a 5 energy, okay, which a lot of times speaks to me a lot about blockages, okay? It speaks a lot about blockages, but understanding that there are loopholes within the even though the stone might be solid, right? You might, for the most part, you see here solid stone, but then you see these different little dots there, and that represents different holes. So there may be walls, there may be blockages, there may be challenges, there may be things stopping you from being able to create that peace and balance and harmony. But trust it, and it might be very frustrating for you, but trust and believe that there are some definite loopholes if you are willing to see things from a different perspective, if you are willing to look at it from a different angle and from a different perspective. But you have to be willing. We talk about a transition happening here, and the transition really is that you are beginning to foresee an outcome. You're going from a place of being able to have these visions and foreseeing these outcomes to where you're eventually going to be able to find the light at the end of the tunnel. So it talks about a good outcome happening here if you allow yourself to be open and willing to the process. There's a need for surrender here. So that might be a hint, if you will, or nugget of information that will help you. There's a need for surrender, that even though you may not necessarily understand, and it may not make any sense to you at all, and because it makes no sense to you at all, it may cause a lot of inner conflict and frustration. But if you surrender to the process, everything is going to work out. There's a light at the end of the tunnel of all of the challenges that are going on for you right now in your partnership, within yourself, within that conflict. And so we really want to be open to the process. If you, the big question here is, what do you envision? What do you envision coming from the partnership? Before anything else, there's a reason that you began the partnership in the first place. Your homework is to figure out what that reason was. What do you envision? Even if things are not going the way that you would like them to go now, doesn't matter. What do you envision in a partnership? You got to sort of kind of detach from how things are going at the moment and allow yourself to really step back a moment and go, okay, what do I envision in a partnership? Okay, and hold on to that vision, because the biggest idea here is that no matter what, the message here is that no matter what challenges may come your way, so long as you keep a cool head and you stick to the vision, everything's going to work out fine. Everything's going to work out fine. It may not look like it in the beginning because you might be too caught up in the now. You might be too caught up in that superficial present, what it's looking like on the external situation, or you may be too caught up in how it's feeling right now on the inside of you. So one or the other. But if you have faith in your vision, if you have faith in the vision, and that vision is going to happen irregardless of this one situation, okay? Because you got a whole journey going on, okay? You got a whole journey going on. This situation in itself, whatever's happening for you, all that it is simply a roadblock on your way to getting to that vision. It's not going to stop the vision. The vision is going to happen regardless. But life is always going to have some challenges along the way. And so your job is to have a sense of detachment from the challenges, because you know, you have faith that things are going to happen irregardless of what adversities come your way, even in your partnership. That can be said in your partnership just as well. No matter what's going on in your partnership right now, what you envision is going to happen. That's what you got to keep your mind and your heart on. And if you give yourself permission to have the strength to follow that, okay, to really kind of look at this on more of almost a transpersonal level, to really kind of look at this from a higher place versus looking at it from the direct, looking at it from what's right in front of you, looking at it from that superficial, but really looking at it from a higher place, because everything has a conditioning, a lesson, and this goes back to the Saturn. Everything has a master lesson to it. And it may be that the challenges and the conflicts you're getting right now are actually helping you on your way to reaching and understanding that master lesson. But if you say no, and if you walk away from it, because you may be so ego driven or independent or strong willed, and not really giving into the fact that, okay, I need, there's this part of me that actually wants partnership, and maybe partnership means that I need to be willing, I need to be willing to look beyond myself, to look beyond my own ego, to look beyond myself. If I really truly want the partnership, that's the only way you're going to be able to get through this, is to really look beyond yourself. And you're creating something. Don't forget that something's being created out of this partnership. If you have faith, if you believe in what your vision is, you will get there. But you've got to get beyond you to get there. You got to get beyond you. And so one of the master lessons that may come your way with this challenge, it might be helping you to get to that space. Because the question then becomes, who do I need to be in order to get to where I want? And life may be showing you who you need to be, challenging you in ways that you may not want to be challenged, because you might have a lot of resistances. You might have a lot of, blockages, yourself, from within yourself, when it comes to who you need to be. Because we're looking at want versus need when it comes to Saturn. What karmic master lessons are there? Who do I need to be in order to create the life that I want? That's what we're looking at. And then with the moon, just understanding that there are understanding that holding the dream, the moon as a guide, she will really help you to tap into the dream, to find the vision. So work with the moon to go inside of yourself and hunt for that vision, hunt for that feeling, so that it can be created within the womb of you. We talked about the womb earlier. So, go within yourself, reflect, go on a spiritual journey, not necessarily on a physical one to where I am actually going to go find it outside of myself or walking outside of myself, but an astral journey. I'm going on an astral journey, a spiritual journey, a meditative journey, to go find this vision, to go find this feeling, to go find the outcome that I'm looking for, so that I can keep my eye on the prize, because I have faith and know. And once I have that dream, that vision, that feeling, that image, that aspiration within my womb, within my heart, within my body, I hold it there at all times, not even letting myself get in the way. Okay? Once I can do that, and once I can hold it, and once I can, this is how the moon and how Saturn come together. Because the story of Saturn is that we look at Kronos and how Kronos trapped the children on the inside of the belly. So how can you sort of trap, like a dream catcher? How can I catch and trap this dream on the inside of my own being, so that it can become a part of me, so that it can speak to me, so that it can be me, so that it can flow and, really permeate throughout my body, so that I can step somewhere beyond myself to become that. And everything that I do is from that place of the vision and dream that I have for my future, that has to do with this partnership. This is the reason, this is the intention for entering the partnership. Once I understand what my intention is, what I want, feel it within your heart, within your soul, within your being. Know that every single action and step that you take from then on, though sometimes and a lot of times it may challenge you, it's actually going to heal you and restore you so that you can get to where you want to go. So that's what we're looking at with this. This was a very interesting journey, gathering circle. I really do hope that it assisted you in some way, helped you in some way, to really get deeper into yourself and really ask those, serious questions. Who do I need to be? Because I'm stepping out of want and into need and to necessity in order to create what I wish to create in my life. Because sometimes the mind doesn't have all the answers. Sometimes I got to be willing to listen to my body. I've got to be willing to listen to my soul. I've got to be willing to listen to my emotions. I've got to be willing to listen to my heart. Got to be willing to listen to my feelings. So I hope that this really has helped you, and I look forward to continuing this path with you, this journey with you. And don't forget to call in Saturn, Harmonia, and the Moon to really help you, understand how to harmonize the energies of your conscious self with your unconscious and subconscious and higher conscious selves. How to harmonize your different forms of consciousness. I'll see you next time. Ashugalan, Agalanor.